Hey guys, Rich Bruckner here. Today I'm going to talk about floating, something that I've been doing for almost a decade now. A lot of people, I shouldn't say a lot of people, I've heard Joe Rogan refer to it as a sensory deprivation tank, which makes it sound a lot scarier than it actually is. Really, it's just a tub that's filled with water that's heated to the same temperature as a human body. They put about 1,000 pounds of Epsom salt in that tank, which makes you extremely buoyant when you lay down in the tank. And they basically make complete darkness in the room. So the idea is that as you're floating there in the water that's heated to the same temperature as your body, in complete darkness and silence, that from the lack of outside stimulation, you're able to get a real intense meditation. I don't know if intense is the right word, but that's been my experience, is that I've had some of my better meditations in these types of situations. So when I first started to try meditating, I'm a very easily distracted person. So if I was just home, sitting in a room, trying to meditate, a lot of times I'd be thinking about other things going on around me, picking up my cell phone, turning on the TV, reading a book, all kinds of other things that I could be doing. Made it very difficult for me to concentrate on the actual meditation, being in the moment. So I started floating, and I found it a lot easier for me. It's been an amazing tool on my practice of meditation. Now that I've floated close to 100 times in my life in the last about 9 years. From doing that practice, I've become better at being able to meditate outside of the tank. Maybe the tank and a combination of just practice in general, but it's been a really great experience. So usually when I go in there, in the beginning, I would be really focused on trying to. It's weird how like with meditation, the longer you do it, the easier it comes. In the beginning, it was a very difficult thing for me, where I always had to feel like I was like really getting myself in the zone to meditate. I'd have to like count down and like focus on my breath very intently, like for the first 5 or 10 minutes to really get myself in the zone. But over time, I found it a lot easier and more natural. Like I know what I'm there for. I get into the tank and I still do my breathing. In the first couple of minutes, just to get a cadence going, and then I kind of just let it go from there, and I'm able to slip into a meditation and just let my mind be free. So a lot of people have a misconception that when you're trying to meditate, that means you have to have a blank mind or clear all your thoughts. That's not my understanding of meditation. For me, when I meditate, I kind of I stop trying to control my mind. I stop trying to control my thoughts, and my thoughts can wander to all types of different places. And I believe that my mind knows where to focus my attention. So if my mind's showing me something about my life, there's a reason why it's showing me that, and I'm able to just let myself explore these different areas of my life. Sometimes my mind will focus on something that happened in the week before I got to the tank, or the week before the meditation that I'm in. It'll show me an event that happened and how I reacted to it, and I'll start to dissect it and say, I was actually wrong in that situation, and I'll be called to go back and try and correct that behavior, or to try to not do that again. There's other times when it'll focus back on something far back in my past that still affects my life today and the way I behave today, and I'm able to look at that and try to figure out why am I looking at this, and what could I take from it. So it's definitely a good practice. And the other thing, aside from having those moments of seeing, being able to be introspective about my life and what's going on, sometimes it's just about completely, it is about just letting your brain have a break from all that stimulation. Because I find that when I'm not consistently going into the tank, when I'm not making time for it, I'm not going to say that I don't have time for it, because it's a choice. It's, do I make time for it? Do I don't? Is it a priority for me? Is it not? So there's times in my life when I haven't made it a priority for myself to set aside the time to go into the tank regularly. And I'll find that the stresses of everyday life catch up with me a lot more. And I feel the effects on my sleep. I feel the effects on my general anxiety and stress levels. So the bottom line is, I see myself performing much better and feeling a lot better when I make time to give myself a mental break. By spending 90 minutes in the tank, think about yourself. A lot of people don't spend 90 minutes out of their week to just let their brain have a break. We're either focused on work, we're cooking, cleaning, taking care of our families, taking care of our obligations. And then in the time that we're not doing any of those things, we're usually watching TV, we're reading a book, we're distracting ourselves in some ways, we're out at a social function, we're having a conversation with others, we're on social media. Most people in general don't really take the time to just let their brain, other than when they're asleep, to just let their brain do something else, to focus on something else. So for me, this is a good way to force myself. Once I'm in the tank, I'm in there for 90 minutes. I could get out whenever I want, but when I've already scheduled that time for myself, it's good for my brain, and if it's good for my brain, it's good for my body. I truly believe that my body functions better when my brain's functioning better, and when I'm feeling better from those two things, my general mood throughout the week is just better. So I'm back in the routine of floating weekly. So when I first started, I was going every single week without fail. I would never miss a week. And then there's been times in my life where I tell myself, oh, I'm too busy this week, I'll go next week. And then, next week turns into 3 months from now. And then, I feel the difference in myself when I'm not taking care of myself and I'm not being mindful of my mental health. So this is a very important part of my life. I definitely recommend, if you haven't tried it, find a place near you that offers it. When I first became interested in floating, there wasn't anywhere close to me per se. I would have to take, at the time, I probably would have had to take a train, like a 1 hour train ride, and then it was more expensive than I was able to afford at the time, which, it was like $90 for a session at this place in Manhattan. And I didn't have the capability to drive there, so the train was just like the only way for me to get there, and I really didn't have $90 to even put into that at the time. So by the time I did have the money to do it and I started looking into it again, I found out that a place right near my house at the time had just opened up recently, and it was like $50 for a session, and it was very close to me. I had the capability to drive there at this time, so I signed up, and the first time I tried it, I absolutely loved it. Even though there is a learning curve to it, so the first time that you do it, for me, this was like the one obstacle I had, is that, like, you're floating in the water because of the Epsom salt, you're very buoyant, but I still felt like I had to support my head, because I felt like I didn't want to let my head go into the water. I just felt like I was going to sink and drown, so my instinct was to support my head with my neck muscles, and by the end of the session my neck was very sore and stiff, and I've heard that happen to a few people. I know at the place that I go to, they do give you a device, like a floating device, that's meant if you have to put your head on it to support your head and prevent that from happening. They have those in the room. So if it's your first time going and you're just finding a new location in your area, you might want to ask them about that. And if they don't have that, you could always lay with your arms behind your head to support your head the first couple of times you do it. But honestly, that only happened to me my first time. The second time I knew that I could just let my head go and it would be fine, and it was fine, and that's never been an issue for me again. But I loved the feeling I got of having that meditation in a tank, and that was like my first. I really look at it like I had tried meditation a lot of times before that. I think that was like my first meditation where I felt like I really got something out of it, and I was like, wow, I love this. So yeah, I definitely 100%. If you don't know where there's one near you, definitely look it up in your area. 2023 is a lot different than 2014 and 2012 when I was first looking into this stuff. But you definitely find, if you can't find one close to you, then maybe you could find one that's in a location that you plan on being at some point. Like I would even, if I didn't have one in my area and I knew there was one somewhere, like if I was on vacation for 3 or 4 days somewhere, I would take 90 minutes out of my vacation to go do it. Like that's how important it is, and that's how amazing the experience has been for me. So I really recommend it that much. I'm gonna give more videos about stuff like this that has made an impact on my mental health and my spiritual life. I'm going to keep on adding to this. Next week I'm going to be giving a recap on where I'm at with the magic. I made a previous video in the same playlist regarding a book that really changed my life called The Magic by Rhonda Byrne. So I actually gave away 5 copies today of The Magic, but next week I'm going to be giving a recap of my first week. Yeah, so as of next week when I drop my next video in the Mind Matters series, it'll be a recap of my first few days of following the 28-day system that's in the book, The Magic. I'm just going to be giving my recap of my experience with completing the first few days, how I feel, and if you're interested in more information about floating, leave a comment. If you want any more information about floating, definitely leave a comment. Subscribe, because I will be doing a lot more content like this. So if you like this, subscribe. If you want to hear more about the magic, like I said, just follow this page and you'll see a lot more. And thanks for watching.